So for me, this is coming home. This is coming home to a place that I'm very familiar with, a place that I saw grow and develop and become what it is today when I first moved out to Riverside. And I watched the landscape get dotted by more and more development and more growth and traffic and all of the things that come with that, right? But also, we did not plan very well, right? Our policies, our practices, our design of space really created so many other problems because we didn't think ahead. We didn't think about the long-term consequences of our growth and development. And so I come back to the design lab with that background, right? Knowing that we didn't do a good job in Southern California. Within urban planning, I'm a housing and community development scholar. And so when I think about community-driven design, I think about working with communities to help them advance their own goals, provide them with resources, skills, the ability for social mobility, economic mobility, so that if some shock to the system were to happen, say an economic recession, or even a natural disaster, right? A fire comes through or a hurricane comes through, that they can bounce back from these shocks to the system. I think about addressing the slow-moving disasters. And what I mean by that is poverty and inequality and racism. These things are chronic disasters that we have in our community, right? So I work on those issues so that if a fast-moving disaster were to come in, a fire, hurricane, whatever, that those communities can withstand it. When we think about asking the right questions and getting at the root causes, as opposed to just being reactionary and addressing kind of what's in front of us. Communities that have stronger social ties, social networks, if they have those community resources, they are going to be able to withstand crises. It's about constantly working on the slow-moving disasters, but then also being able to quickly respond to the fast-moving disasters. And I think that, that's kind of how I frame the work that I do, and it ties in, all of the different projects that I have. So I worked on a project in Charlotte, North Carolina that evaluated what's called a Hope 6 project. And Hope 6 is a federal program. And this program was unique in that most Hope 6 programs, they demolish public housing, old, dilapidated public housing, and build mixed income housing. And so Charlotte said, well, what if we invested in a lot more in case management and actually connecting families to resources, job training, child care resources, transportation resources. We need to address mental health issues in our population. That's really critically important. But to get, families who've been living in poverty for a very long time to work, one, they actually do want to work. All of them said, I want to work. And two, they need to be connected to those resources. You can't just say you need to go work and they have to go, find it themselves. And so it's this sort of, wraparound service model where they get incredible quality housing in a mixed income neighborhood, right? And then also layered on top of that are resources and services that they can access. I think that model, it does work, and we've shown that it does work. Coming to a country, from a war-torn country to another country such as the US that had very strong opinions about the Vietnam War. There were many people that did not like the fact that we were in America. And we've seen this happen time and time again, right? After conflicts, after wars, immigrants coming over, the anti-immigration backlash. It affects me personally and professionally. It shaped the way that I think that's where I get my commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know that the Design Lab has tremendous expertise and strength in the human technology interaction. And I bring with me this human technology and then spatial component, asking the right questions about systems change and to think about getting at the root causes so that we don't have all of these unintended consequences of our actions. So I think that having a equity lens, a DEI lens towards the lab is going to be critically important. It's definitely a priority of mine. And that has to start within the lab. And then it extends outward. It extends outward to the research that we do, the community engagement that we do, and it's continual. What drew me into the Design Lab was to learn about how these problems that you're trying to solve are not solved by being in silos, but through collaborations across these different disciplines and across partnerships with industry and community partners, right? And I think that for me, that's kind of the most powerful thing.